Welcome back to Care Anywhere. Every year, TruMerit partners with the DAISY Foundation to honor two international nurse recruiters who support foreign educated nurses with career mobility, and they do so in a way that aligns with our ethical code for international recruitment. On this episode, I'm sitting down with one of this year's honorees, Donita Ross, and the person who nominated her, Erik Schuman, both from Health Carousel. So jump in with me as we talk about Donita's work in this space and why she was such a worthy candidate for this award. This episode starts now. In this podcast, we're setting the table for some powerful discussions with nurses, allied health professionals, regulators, tech innovators, and other thought leaders across the globe. Welcome to Care Anywhere, the Global Health Workforce Podcast, brought to you by TruMerit. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Care Anywhere. I'm your host, Lea Sims, and I'm excited about our episode today. I'm joined by Donita Ross and Erik Schuman from Health Carousel. Donita, congratulations on your award. We were so honored to be part of the experience of acknowledging the great work that you do in international health workforce recruitment. Excited to talk about that today. So let's just kick it off by letting everybody know who you are. Donita, if you could go first, and Erik, just a little bit of background about yourself and how you found your way into the recruitment space, international recruitment space. So Donita, we'll start with you. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. And thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to talk today. You know, the DAISY Award that I was presented through TruMerit, as I think about crowning moments in my career, rises to the top. And so I was incredibly humbled by the recognition. So I thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
So as you said, my name is Donita Ross. I'm the Associate Chief Nursing Officer and Vice President for Health Carousel International. I am a nurse by trade. I've been a nurse for 36 years. My tagline here is I was 5 years old when I started, in case you're doing the math to see how old I am. But very proud of my years in the industry. I spent the majority of my early career in acute care settings. Had a few defining moments. One of them came in 2018 for me when I really started testing my own philosophy around healthcare being much more broader than the four walls of an acute care organization. So that's what brought me to Health Carousel. I've been here for 9 years, and truly one of the honors of my career to have the ability to have a global impact for nurses from a mentoring career perspective, to help them not only realize their American dream, but to get the great honor and privilege to practice nursing in the United States.
Amazing. So for our audience, that 9 that you see in the background behind Donita, today is your 9-year anniversary with Health Carousel. And Erik, I think it's amazing that you do that for your employees. Donita was just telling me they all get a balloon and a congratulations. So it's very cool that happened to fall on today, our recording. So congratulations on that, Donita. Erik, tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, you bet. Just a little bit about that balloon real quick. You know, that's actually the second balloon. When I was blowing up the first one, it popped because I nated it. So I had to bring in a second one. But my name is Erik Schuman. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Health Carousel, and I get the privilege of working alongside Donita and a whole host of employees here at Health Carousel that are both in the U.S. and around the world that have a purpose and a mission to ensure that every patient has access to a qualified healthcare professional when and where they need one. And we do that at Health Carousel. We've been doing that since 2004. And so we've been in the international healthcare space for a long time. We're the largest international healthcare organization here in the U.S. And we're really proud of the purpose-driven work that we do to improve lives and make healthcare work better.
I was just telling Donita, I hear great things about you all the time. So it's such a privilege to have you guys with us today and talk about what you do. So Donita, you answered my first question really in your introduction about, kind of how you got where you are and the passion that you have for what you're doing. So Erik, I would love for you to share, tell us a little bit from your perspective about Donita and the work that she does. And, her nomination describes her And even the day that we got on a call with you and your team and announced the award, there was so much great feedback about her being someone that goes above and beyond a typical job description to support your clients from end to end, and to make sure that they have a really great and personalized caretaking and stewarding experience, across the board. Can you give some examples of why Donita really excels in this role and why she was such a worthy nominee for this award?
Yeah, well, that may use up, I think, most of our time here today.
That's okay too.
So let me jump right in and get started with that. She really is. What I really appreciate about Donita is she really is the heart and soul of, kind of the team. And when I say that, and I know Donita would really express this to you as well, is that we really are a team of individuals that are working towards a collective purpose, and Donita is really at the middle of that. And I hear her constantly say all the time to the team is that, behind every healthcare professional, there's a story, there's a purpose, there's challenges, and there's really a dream. And it's really our collective effort to sort of pull together to help that individual achieve what they want to do professionally and personally. And at the end of that, we're also helping patient care and patient lives here in the U.S. So she really finds a way to connect with the individual, and that, there's a person there, there's reasons behind what they're doing, and she really touches people in that way. And as you can imagine, when you're in the people business, things don't always go as planned. And that's really where you see Donita spring in. And I think it's that 30 plus years of being a nurse at the bedside, she's excellent at triaging each one of those individual situations, and then meeting the nurse where the nurse is, and also meeting our customers where the customers are, because everyone has their own unique needs. And so it's her sort of situational awareness and problem solving and being able to triage issues that really come to bear when she's actioning, sort of solving problems and issues for our healthcare professionals.
Absolutely.
One of the things that, Donita does when I think about not just our employees that work at Health Carousel, but how she takes care of the 12,000 individuals that are also abroad, is she wants our organization to be known as the employer of choice. And when you think about being an employer of choice, you have to focus on the well-being of the healthcare professional. And that's, not just their professional, but it's also their personal, financial, and social well-being. And so what Donita does is she puts together programs and works together with our team to make sure that all those aspects of the whole person are taken into consideration in terms of how we help them achieve the American dream by coming to the U.S. to be at the bedside.
And that echoes so much of what we hear at TruMerit from those same international applicants who come through our doors, that, the journey they take is not easy. There are a lot of hoops they have to jump through, legal and regulatory requirements, all of those things that we work closely with you guys on for sure. But it's also those other things you mentioned, Erik, that really are going to be the factors in whether they thrive here, and not just in their jobs, but in their lives and with their families and financially, and all of those things. It's so great to hear that you guys are committed to that entire journey, and not just whether or not they're clinically eligible and ready to practice in the jobs that you're recruiting them for. So let's talk about that a little bit. The award is really around ethical international recruitment, which is what you've touched on. Can you both talk about, and Donita, we'll start with you, why ethical recruitment and management of international clients is a core value for your organization? I'm sure you've seen, as we have, there are plenty of instances out there where international nurses and other healthcare workers aren't being stewarded as ethically through this process. So maybe sharing some of what you've seen or heard from your clients globally, and why that's so important to you as a missional objective.
Yes, absolutely. And, at the core of everything we do is ethical recruitment. And, I think that is important, not only for us as an organization. It was an incredibly strong determining factor on which organization I joined. And I joined Health Carousel because of their proven time in industry, their ethical approach, I think it's important for our clients. It's important for our candidates as well. And I think for me, the three main pillars that stand out, the first one is the rights of the individual, right? So I think about the healthcare professional, right? They have a right to immigrate, and how we lean in and ethically help support that healthcare professional in the journey is really important. That starts at the conversation around the contract, fair and transparent contracting, right? There are times, this industry, I think you have to be very careful because they can be vulnerable in their desire to immigrate. And it's important that they are connecting with a certified ethical recruitment agency. So respecting that right of the individual, their freedom of movement, even beyond the contracting, we are so involved with our healthcare professionals through the entire journey of immigration, all the way to helping collaborate with them to define where the best place they want to go in the United States is, right? And so that's the holistic approach, ensuring that it's so much more than just getting them here, and it's helping them thrive. The second pillar for me for ethical recruitment is just around the responsibility that comes with immigration and making sure that they're immigrating legally, we're complying with all U.S. laws, et cetera. And last but not least, I think from a ethical recruitment perspective, one of the hallmarks for me is reinvestment in the countries in which we are recruiting nurses from. We have really demonstrated a strong reinvestment back to the communities through our Health Carousel Foundation. And I think it's important to point out we do not actively recruit in countries that are on the WHO safeguard list, and that is part of our ethical pledge. So we are not actively recruiting in those countries, but the countries we do recruit in, we have very strategic partnerships where we are providing free training for nursing students, faculty, nurse educators. We have provided scholarships to over 60 nurse educators. And really our core belief there is that if we are helping a nurse educator, we're going to get a multiplier effect, right? We are basically, if you take one tree, you need to plant two more. And so by strengthening a source country's nurse educator line, we are then helping them to multiply more growth of nurses in their country. We also partner with the DAISY Foundation. Interestingly enough, here's my fun fact. The first project I did in 2018 when I joined Health Carousel was I recommended that we partner with the DAISY Foundation because I know how strong meaningful recognition is. And I felt like it was so important for this organization. And I only had to present it once and they took me up on it. So we have been partnered with the DAISY Foundation since 2018. And again, through just reinvestment in countries where we have candidates coming from, we have sponsored over 48 DAISY awards. We're helping countries that otherwise would not be able to participate through that collaboration. And, I think at last count, Erik, you can correct me if I'm wrong. One of the last statistics I saw from our foundation report is that we've contributed over 1,500 nurses to the global supply through a lot of those efforts that we've done. So as a nurse, I love the profession of nursing, and it is equally, if not more important to me than what I do, that we are sustaining this fantastic profession around the globe. And I couldn't be more proud of the work that this organization does to make sure that sustainability is invested in.
Well, we're about a year out from the State of the World's Nursing Report that came out last year from WHO, and you've touched on two really critical recommendations out of that report in terms of addressing global critical shortage and maldistribution, and in terms of how you're careful about where you're recruiting. But I love, Donita, that you guys are so invested in recognition because it's one of those pillars that people don't talk about enough, that really do address burnout and turnover and so many of those other things that are driving critical shortage. Recognition is so critical to keeping people encouraged and supported and valued in the roles that they're in healthcare. So that's amazing. Erik, did you want to weigh in on Health Carousel's positions around ethical recruitment? Donita, you did a great job outlining all that, but Erik, you might want to weigh in there.
Yeah, she did an outstanding job. And,
Good.
it's interesting. The WHO just updated their guidelines on ethical recruitment. These guidelines hadn't been updated for approximately 15 years. They just came out with an update in 2026. And really sort of the pillar of that update is the commitment that we all have, because it's not just a local problem, it's a global problem. And in terms of the nurse shortage, and really a commitment in that update to reinvest in other countries and give back. So I'm really proud that Health Carousel's been out in front, leading for the last couple of years, investing in advance of even the code being updated, where we're investing back in those source countries. It's funny, you think about a carbon neutral footprint, and so I'm really proud to say that we have every year created more nurses abroad in their home countries than have immigrated here to the U.S. And so we feel strongly, about our part, investing back in those countries through scholarships and recognition and education for nurses globally.
Well, I know in talking to Earl last year, who was on this podcast as well, that you guys are committed to training in some of those spaces too, and I think that's a big part of it too, equipping the nurses that are there in country to be able to thrive and have upward mobility. Because when we talk about career mobility, it's not just immigration, it's not just physical movement around the globe. It's really as much, if not more so, important to focus on career pathways and opportunities for nurses to continue to move up into higher education and advanced degrees and specialty certifications and all of those things. So I know that you guys are investing in critical care nurses, for example, that we talked about, which is so great.
Donita and I were just visiting with one of our customers last week, and we were meeting with the CNO, and she was talking to me. Her legacy or hallmark is basically how she's been able to integrate international nurses, not just into the hospital and at the bedside, but also into their local community. This is a rural-based hospital. And so it's not only improving the patient care at the hospital, but it's also, improving the overall community in terms of those international healthcare professionals. And it was great because we were talking about a story when you talk about career progression, right? One of our nurses is actually getting their master's, and we're funding that master's through our work study program that we provide our healthcare professionals. But that nurse is still at the hospital, and the CNO is like, I think I see the next person in my succession plan coming up. And that's an international nurse from Health Carousel. So it was really, we had a lot of fun. It was inspiring to spend time with her, and also with our healthcare professional, talking about, his personal career goals and the investment that he's making back in his education to improve his professional skills and acumen.
Well, and you mentioned rural hospitals. I mean, the need to recruit care workers into those spaces couldn't be more timely. And when we see so many rural hospitals closing and for lack of staffing and infrastructure support. So it's amazing that you guys are, able to connect the dots there and get people into critically needed spaces. I was just at a conference 2 weeks ago, ASHRA, which is the healthcare HR, recruitment conference, and spoke to a couple of people from rural hospitals that are just considering international workforce recruitment and wanting to figure that out, and they haven't done it before. So I think there's plenty of opportunity there as we see those hospitals close. I think it's important work that you're doing. So let's talk about, Donita, the work that you do for people that don't know, and we're up. Both of our organizations are pulled up close to it every day, but people might not be familiar with how difficult the journey is and the process that someone has to go through to get here. It's years of waiting for many and a lot of hoops that they have to jump through. Can you describe that journey your clients go through to pursue a global opportunity, whether it's you guys focus here in the US, but whether they were going here or anywhere, what does a typical journey look like? How does it start and how do you navigate them through that?
Yes, absolutely. It's a great question. And it's one that we take a lot of pride and partnership in meeting every one of our client partners and where they are. One thing that is for sure across acute care, academic, rural institutions, every organization is its own ecosystem and they're all at a bit of a different place. And we take a lot of pride in not having a cookie cutter approach into how we are a consultative partner. So, we meet with each client. There's a lot of discovery to understand where they are, but that's the typical beginning of the journey. What I find is that they either sit in one of two camps. The first one is they've never tried international. They have read about it, or they have a colleague or a peer that has done it. So they're brand new to international. Or the other group of folks that we tend to interact with are people that have tried international and maybe have done different models or, had different experiences. So sometimes in that group of people, we have to do a lot of education. I think all of it starts with education. Sometimes there's some myth busting, right? And helping people understand what the pathways to the United States look like. And so we lean in, do a lot of discovery with the client, educating them on what that immigration journey looks like, making sure that we are really clear in articulating through different models. One of the things that I consistently find when I'm, in a discovery phase with a client is if they have had a past experience where they've signed up and they've waited years and the nurses have never come. And, as a CNO myself, having come from acute care, I understand the pressure that the CFO is coming back after you. Like, where are all these nurses that we've spent money on? And so really just educating them. There are different models. There's a direct model. There's the long-term temp to perm model that we do, where we're engaged with the client and the candidate post arrival for a period of time to help that assimilation and that retention stick. And, the other key thing I believe in our client journey is setting realistic expectations. Because I do find that sometimes, that may have been a challenge for them in the past. And so giving them, the data to believe how we have, as Erik had mentioned, we've got, the largest pipeline of international healthcare professionals. So based on our diligence in recruiting and our pipeline quality, we're able to deliver candidates, at quicker speeds than a lot in the industry, and helping the client understand. But it's not always about quick delivery either. What I would tell you is a significant portion of what we do is assessing, what do you need now? How can we close a short-term gap for you? But what does your long-term workforce strategy planning look like, right? That's really important. What's your 3 to 5 year plan in your organization? As we know, the U.S. is facing significant retirements. And, we understand acutely that a new grad coming into your organization is not one for one replacing your 40-year OR nurse who's been there, right? There is a lot of critical thinking, clinical judgment that just comes with time in the field. And, making sure that from our perspective, we're helping them see where we can help close what's called the care complexity gap. So you can bring in experienced talent. We can set up what I think is really fun, if you would. My idea of fun is working with clients and saying, hey, let's look at each specialty Where do you have upcoming gaps? How do we curate a specific pipeline for you based on the skill set that you need, the experience that you need? And we are able to line that up with projected arrival timelines to ensure that there's no gap in care to their community. So that journey, we have many clients that we've worked with for 5, 8, 10 years, and we've got such strength in relationship. I appreciate that value, and I think that's the biggest thing we can do is be that consultative partner to make sure they understand not only the immigration, but then how we can support their long-term workforce strategy.
I would imagine that not taking a one size fits all sort of approach and the way that you're doing that on a consultative basis, placement by placement, also benefits the health worker, because we hear a lot about international nurses coming in either here or into Canada and are underemployed. They're positioned below their licensure level, or they're positioned, in long-term care, but they have many years of critical care experience. And so if you're working with those clients on both ends to try and match make as well as possible, I imagine that is beneficial to the health worker as well, who's then getting positioned and able to come in and work at the top of their skills as well, or at least as close to them as they can initially. But we do hear some horror stories about nurses that have a lot of advanced experience in the countries that they're in, but they come here or they go into Canada and they're either not able to get jobs, or they're, working far below maybe their advanced experience. So just throwing that out, but I'm assuming you see some of that as well.
Yeah, and we're really committed. I think the partnership is so valuable, and it's a three-way partnership. When we get down to interviewing and matching talent, all three parties are a part of that, right? We're supporting that nurse. The nurse is absolutely interacting with each client. They're interviewing, every client's interviewing the talent. They have their own competency skill checklist that they're ticking off in the interview. They're getting to learn about the healthcare professional. And in so many of our client partnerships, they are creating career pathways for the international healthcare professional once they start. And in so many ways, what I would tell you is them arriving in the US and starting, that's just the beginning of the journey. And so many people would look at that, okay, check the box, you got them here. I think that's where the work starts, right? We've invested 3, 5, 6, 7 years in that immigration journey. And we've really built strong bonds with that healthcare professional. But I get really excited about them arriving here and career pathing, working to top of scope, understanding, what their next goal they're going to set for themselves year over year is going to look like, and how they benefit communities all across the United States and all the client partners that we work with.
Erik, has it been a challenge to convince some health systems or healthcare organizations to trust the process and hire internationally? Are they eager to hire internationally? I'm curious what you see on the client side.
Yeah, good question. I would tell you that we've really seen it evolve. When Donita and I first were starting in this industry, I would say it was a bit more of a niche industry, and there was a lot of work that needed to be done to sort of talk about quality, experience, that overall journey. But it's becoming, I would say, a lot more mainstream. That if international isn't part of your long-term workforce strategy, then you have a big gap in your workforce strategy. And so it's very much becoming more mainstream. Now, what I would tell you is there are a lot of noise in the system right now. And so, you watch a lot of headlines, and there's a lot of headlines around just immigration in general and things of that nature. And so that can leave a lot of customers confused and wondering what the process is, the status of, sort of the immigration journey for the healthcare professionals. And so, you're in education mode and talking about, sort of that journey and the education of the customer so that they feel confident, sort of in that journey, just under the current, environment that they're seeing when they go home at night and watch the news.
We hear, as you guys do, a lot of questions about the current immigration posture, and the sort of tightening up on processes for legal immigration, a little bit longer times of waiting and getting through that process right now. We tell them, use a certified ethical recruiter because they're going to help you navigate the complexities of our immigration process right now. And so it's great to hear you echo that. That's what you're seeing and helping people navigate through. I think people are still quite eager to come work here and just have questions about whether or not it's going to be more difficult to do that or more difficult when they get here. What shifts and trends are you guys seeing right now around health worker mobility in terms of where people want to go or how they're feeling about career mobility or moving, from one country to another? We certainly see, as you guys probably do, a lot of multi-stop journeys. So they might move from one country to another to go to school, and then they might, come to the US to work. Any trends that you're seeing that maybe are changing in the last year or two?
I would say, Dean, I'll start off and feel free to jump on in here. But I think we're consistently seeing nurses move from one country to another. We can see based upon the number of NCLEX test takers globally,
Right.
That number is just increasing, doubling in some cases year over year. And so you can tell that the nurse population does have a final destination in mind, but they know that final destination is going to take some time. And, they've got professional and personal and financial goals that they're trying to achieve while they wait on that journey to sort of come to fruition to get to the U.S. And we see them moving from, their home country to another country to gain that valuable experience. And it's very important that the nurses remain at the bedside before coming to the U.S. We have an experience gap that's being created here at home in the U.S. as, older nurses are leaving the bedside and retiring. And we have a lot of new grads coming into the market. And you referenced earlier nurses that have years of experience and very high in their practice. And so we think it's very important that nurses are continuing to stay at the bedside to maintain that experience before coming here to the U.S., because that's what the hospitals, the acute care hospitals that we work with, are looking for.
Yeah. Ultimately, can you do the work? Do you have the experience? Right. They need all the documentation and the test scores and all of those things, but ultimately they're like, we need to know you can do this work at the bedside. So we covered earlier my next question around what you guys are doing to address global maldistribution and the work that the foundation's doing and the training there. And I didn't know if there's anything that you want to add before we close out. But again, I know you guys are investing in that net zero footprint. And I think the stats that you gave earlier, Erik, are quite impressive, that you're leaving, an investment in local nurses there as much or more than you are helping them, move out of country and explore career mobility elsewhere. Yeah. But I didn't know if you want to give some final thoughts on that before we close.
I would just say to that is that, this is a long-term commitment that we're making. And believe it or not, we spend a lot of time looking at different opportunities around the world where we can provide scholarships for faculties to create more nurses, leadership training and development, helping nurses pass their local licensure exam through our NLE masterclass, et cetera. But you'd be surprised that it can be challenging sometimes to find, the right opportunities. And so I would encourage those that, see real opportunities to increase the sustainability of nursing to, go to the Health Carousel Foundation website and, submit sort of an opportunity where you think we can be of service. We do well by doing good around the world. We all do. And so I would say go to Health Carousel Foundation, and if we can support that need and it aligns with the foundation's goals and missions, we're certainly interested in exploring that.
That's a great closing bit of encouragement. So, Donita, I will pitch the final question over to you. You work with these international nurse candidates every day. What tips and advice can you give to those that are listening to or watching our podcast who are in early contemplation about an international career, don't know how to get started, might be afraid to even think about doing it? And I know you can give them some great closing words of encouragement about how to get started and what to expect, and maybe,
Yes.
What they could be doing right now to be thinking about.
Absolutely. I would love to do that. I think first and foremost, don't ever give up on your dreams. We spoke earlier about just the uncertainty of immigration climate. Headlines, things that people may see on social media may present an image or give nurses a lack of hope that dream could ever come true. And so, I would tell you to disregard probably most of that and connect with a certified ethical recruitment agency, right? You really, number one, you've got to trust your journey with an organization that is certified through the Alliance. There are so many ways to make sure that you are connecting with someone who's going to ethically handle every part of your journey. That's first and foremost, that should be your non-negotiable. My second bit of advice to them would be that the process will sometimes feel uneven, right? The journey here requires multiple different levers to be moved, and they don't always move at the same time, right? So there's an immigration component, petitions filing. The other component of that is just around their readiness, right? And last but not least, U.S. demand. So we've got multiple different levers that have to line up. So sometimes it will feel uneven. Right now, the unevenness is coming from, some countries that have retrogression and they're waiting longer than they thought. And so just stay the course. The first thing that they can do is continue to practice at the bedside. We just talked about that. Acuity continues to rise in U.S. hospitals. So making sure that your skill set is as sharp as possible and you are as marketable as possible is the number one thing that you can do that will protect your journey. So when those levers start moving, you need to be ready, right? When opportunity knocks, you need to be able to open the door. So, staying at the bedside, keeping your skills up, continuing on with any certifications or advanced classes that you may be taking. All of that is really important when you start interviewing with U.S. nursing leaders, and it will show a progressive track of learning and knowledge, which the literature tells all of us patient care outcomes are better if your nurse is continuously learning and has higher degree levels. And last but not least, if you're coming from an area that does not have a lot of English speaking, make sure you're keeping up on your English proficiency, right? Practicing that is really important. But those are the biggest things you could do right now to make sure that when opportunity knocks, that you're the first in line. And as a nursing leader, what I tell so many of our nurses, when I think back about my years in acute care, I would sit down at my desk and I would have 20 resumes, right? And for every nurse, I want you to think about what's going to make your resume jump off my desk at me out of those 20 and make me say, yeah, this is who I want. And so in all of your professional moves and everything that you're doing, thinking about how your resume is going to stand out on a CNO's desk and you're going to get the opportunity is of utmost importance.
I think that's good career advice for any nurse that you just gave, whether or not they're internationally mobile or not. But great advice, great way to close us out. Donita, congratulations again. It's very obvious just in having this conversation why Erik and the team there at Health Carousel thought you would be the ideal nominee for this award. You're doing such great work there, and it's been an honor and a privilege to hear your story. Erik, thank you for nominating her and joining us today and talking about the great work that Health Carousel is doing. We're excited. I just submitted my form last week for TruMerit to participate in Nurse Careers Week again this year, so we're super excited to do that. And partner with you guys there. Thank you so much for being here. I do want to touch on one thing you mentioned to our the nurses listening, international nurses listening, to make sure that if you are considering career mobility, to find a certified ethical recruiter, which Health Carousel is on that list. And we're so proud and grateful that they are and work with us to do that as part of the Alliance. To find a certified ethical recruiter, you can search for the Alliance for Ethical International Recruitment. You can Google that, or you can find out about it at TruMerit.org. So I just want to make sure people know how to get to that list and how to make sure they can locate a certified recruiter. So Donita, thank you for putting that plug in for the for the need for certification, and we're the folks that do that. Thank you to our audience for joining us, and we'll see you next time on our next episode of Care Anywhere. That's it for this episode of Care Anywhere. Thanks for joining us. We hope you'll tune in for future episodes where we will continue these powerful discussions about our global health workforce. If you missed any episodes, you can find them at TruMerit.org/podcast or by subscribing to our channel on your favorite podcast platform. Just look for our podcast logo or search for Care Anywhere to find us. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.